Hi, my name is Larry Staples. If you can get God's Doctrine, what peoples call the King James Version Bible peoples, and turn to the book of Leviticus for chapter 27, verse 13 peoples. God's word said this: but if he will at all redeem it, which is, if peoples would come back for the tithe and wanted peoples, the priests in the past could give the peoples the tithe back for to use it for to help themselves, peoples. To try to help you understand, if you took money to the bank and went inside a bank building and gave the money to a woman and a man for to keep it until you needed it for food, clothes, or bills, or medicine or something. Later you could go back to the bank and go in the bank building, and a man or a woman might could give you the money back and you could use it to get food or things you need. The will of God was for people to take the tithe and offering for to keep the tithe and offering for to help peoples when they needed different things, people, whether it was food, clothes, a house, or to take the tithe, the money for the bill businesses, or if the church needed work did on it, to take the money and pay for things that have the church build back if the boards or roof or something had rotten. But it was for to take the money and do good to help with the church and to help the pastor or preacher in the church, but it was also for to help the peoples too, peoples. If they needed another board for their house or the roof or the floor, peoples needed food. That was the will of God for peoples to take the money for tithe to help with the poor peoples or peoples who was in need of food and other things, peoples. Not to take the tithe and give it to a preacher or a prophet or a pastor or a bishop for them to go buy cars and get a bunch of clothes and them that pay them for teaching God's word. It was not God's will for people to do that, because in the book of Corinthians, it's for the preacher or the prophet not to charge peoples for teaching the gospel to the peoples, because if they do, it is a sin and it takes away from their power, peoples. That was not the will of God. The will of God was for people to pay tithe and offerings, but it was for to do God's will and help different peoples who was in need or poor with that money, peoples, even to help that do things at the church, peoples, or help the preacher if he needed clothes or food. But he also would have had to help the peoples who go to the church that he go to, or other peoples. So read God's word for yourself, because there are many false prophets which nowadays people might call them preachers, that is not doing God's will and deceiving people out of their money, but they will have to give encounter to God for the sin and evil that they do, the preachers and the prophets, as good as I have to give into God for the sin and evil I do, peoples. You peoples would have to give encounter for the sins and evil you peoples do, peoples. But the will of God was for people that take the tithe and offering and do right and good, peoples. So I read again. But if he was at all redeem it, then he shall add a fifth part thereof unto thy estimation. And when a man shall sacrifice his house to be holy unto the Lord, then the priest shall estimate it, whether it be good or bad. As the priest shall estimate it, so shall it be. So, if people is a priest, or is they a prophet, or is they a bishop, evangelist, if peoples gave their tithe to the peoples, those peoples who are preachers, pastors, prophets would have to say what it was worth, and if they said what it was worth, that what it would be, peoples. I read again so I can try to get to know where I was. And when a man shall sacrifice his house to be holy unto the Lord, then the priest shall estimate it, whether it be good or bad. As the priest shall estimate it, so shall it stand. And if he that sanctified it will redeem his house, which is come back and want his house, because redeem is like to go back and get, you can want it back and go back and for to get it, people. So if people wanted to go back and get the tithe, they use it to help them in some kind of way, the peoples could. Then he shall add the fifth part of the money of thy estimation unto it, and it shall be his, which is, people might had to come back for to get the tithe, but they might have had to pay a little more money for to get the tithe back, people. But anyway, the peoples could come back and get tithe for to help themselves, peoples. It was the will of God for people to take the tithe and help other peoples when they was in need or something. To take the tithe and put it away until later for to help people who needed something, whether it was food, clothes, house, or medicine, for people that have been